Hello and welcome to Straight Talk, Supply Chain Insights, the podcast for your supply chain leader who is on the go and wants to be in the know. And now, your host, Laura Ciceri.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Supply Chain Insights. This is a supply chain podcast that's designed for the supply chain leader who's on the go but wants to be in the know. On this podcast, I join with technologists and business users to have short, impactful talks about the state of technology. Today I'm interviewing Andy Duncan, who's the CEO of Boardwalktech, which I think is a pretty cool technology. Andy, welcome to the show today.
Hey, Laura, thanks for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah, so tell the group a little bit about you and a little bit about your technology. And, I know there's a lot to talk about, but let's just kind of make it short and, tell the people what you do.
Yeah, so, I'm a Silicon Valley guy. This is my fifth technology company that I've built, and really kind of focused on the enterprise. I love enterprise transactional business, and I really enjoy kind of solving problems and creating value in the enterprise. Boardwalk is basically invented what's called the digital ledger. We delivered the first digital ledger to the market in 2007 to Nokia. And a digital ledger is a very unique way to manage information. We think that the digital ledger in time is going to be just as important as the relational database and move a market just as strongly as Larry Ellison did in 1975 when he introduced the relational database to the market. And the key issue with regard to, kind of this whole digital ledger is the fact that you can get time-based data in and around the movement of information. And this is critical for, we believe, companies to remain competitive as they look toward, their supply chains and rolling out innovative new technologies in the future.
Andy, I'm sorry, but let's just back up. What's a digital ledger and why should I care?
So a digital ledger is a new way of managing data. So instead of managing data in a relational database where you're managing it in a column or a row, we're actually managing data at the cell level or the atomic unit level, and we're managing the data in a data storage environment where we're making an append to the database or an insert, and we never overwrite data. And when you look at a digital ledger, the reason that is important is you want to have the historical perspective of how that information has changed over time. And many times in a relational database-driven application, you're overwriting data, and you don't really know what changed 3 changes ago. In a digital ledger with a time-based environment, you've got a complete historical record of how that information has matured. This is the key differentiator.
All right, so a dumb question. What's the difference between that and blockchain?
Well, so a digital ledger actually is one of the kind of underlying technologies of what blockchain is. Blockchain can be and is a whole bunch of different things. But the key here is how do you securely move and save information and store it. With a blockchain, you can actually encrypt the information on the back end, which we can do and we do based upon certain use cases. So there are certain use cases where a full-blown blockchain solution makes sense. There's others where you don't need the supreme level of a blockchain encryption in order to get value out of managing data in a time-based environment.
So the difference, Andy, is encryption?
Yeah, so the difference is encryption. The difference also with the difference between the Boardwalk digital ledger and the other digital ledgers that are out there is basically the time to market. If you were to take a look at the kind of the traditional blockchain solutions that are out there that are built around Hyperledger Fabric or Ethereum, there is a lot of work where you have to build from the data model up. a solution, and it takes a long time, and the change management going forward once those systems are up and running is very difficult. With Boardwalk, we effectively have a complete platform that allows you to be able to set up these collaborative environments to be able to move information quickly. Most of our implementations take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and it's you can fully stand up a solution in that time, and it's very flexible going forward.
Well, great. Let's move to the next set of questions. Supply Chain 2030. When I started my company 6 years ago, we were talking about Supply Chain 2020, and it's just right around the corner. And I got to say, not a lot's changed. I've been writing about a lot of technologies and a lot of new trends, but, we move a lot slower than I thought we would move. What do you think Supply Chain 2030 looks like, and how do you think people prepare?
Well, I think Supply Chain 2030 needs to have kind of several components. One is I think that the collaborative exchange of information is going to be critical, and the speed by which you can actually not only realize that information, but do things like run machine learning and AI off of that information is going to be key. So I think that a supply chain in 2020 or 2030 is connected. I think it's collaborative. I think it is secure, and it's also something that we like to call 100% digital. If you take a look, Laura, at the number of companies that were part of the Fortune 500, 10 years ago, and how many are part of the Fortune 500 today, I think you'd be astounded at those companies that have rolled off of the Fortune 500. And you look at why does that happen? And it happens because they don't remain competitive. And in order for a company to remain competitive going forward, they must be digital. And the reason that you've got to be 100% digital is that you've got to be able to make decisions faster, and you cannot make decisions fast if you're stuck in an old manual method of moving information around. You must be digital, and you must have time element against those transactions to understand exactly when they happen, not that they did happen.
I remember a lot of companies that are no longer here. And I'm not sure the answer is entirely about being digital, but I think being digital really helps. And how do you think that companies get into that digital fast lane? What have you seen that works?
Well, I'll tell you, so we have lots of customers today and clients. 27 of the Fortune 500, I think, are clients of Boardwalk today. And I'll tell you, the astounding thing is that many of them have spent hundreds of millions and in some cases over $1 billion on, ERP systems like SAP and Oracle. But yet when we really dig underneath the covers and say, what are you actually doing? It's frightening how much work is still being done in Microsoft Excel. And this is a problem, is that these companies have got to recognize that there needs to be a better way of collaboration and sharing data. And even you said, I believe, that approximately 60% of the planning work in a large enterprise is still being done in Microsoft Excel. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? And the reason is that the enterprises have made information exchange and collaboration too difficult. And because it's difficult and because it's inflexible, a business unit within a company will say, I've got to capture data from different places within my organization. I've got to be able to synthesize that data, and what do I use in order to collect the data from all these different places, whether it's sitting in SAP, in a data warehouse, in Salesforce.com. They use Microsoft Excel because it's the only tool that they have in order to aggregate this data. What we then see is once the data is aggregated, and once they get over, by the way, the argument about whose data is correct or not that's sitting in the spreadsheet, then they start to email these spreadsheets around. The next thing you know is people start to add math to these spreadsheets, and lo and behold, 2 months later, We've got a full-blown application that's built out in Microsoft Excel where hundreds of millions of dollars of decisions are being made on a monthly basis, not decisions that are being made in SAP or Oracle or other big systems of record where they spend a lot of money. The decisions are being made in Excel. So our mission at Boardwalk is to take those Excel processes and not throw Excel out with the bathwater, but to say, let's embrace Excel, but let's create an environment where you can use both Excel, a web form environment, and a mobile environment, all interconnected onto a digital ledger that allows you to now automate and digitize that information exchange. And once that happens and people start to recognize the value of being able to do that, this is how they remain relevant, and this is how they remain on the list of the Fortune 500.
Well, I can't wait until we can better share data. You know, most people don't know how to share data very effectively, so I appreciate you joining the call today, Andy. Any last
Laura,
words
can I share with you, not to interrupt, sorry, but can I share with you a couple of customer, not specifically using names, but use cases where this is very relevant?
I love stories. Bring them on.
Great. There's a large consumer products company that manufactures food that's in the kind of upper Midwest. And they have spent to date over $1 billion on SAP. The major commodity that they purchase as part of their product is wheat. And they spend about $800 million a year on wheat. Now imagine the fact that I'm the CIO and I'm looking at a total spend on SAP of $1 billion, yet the major commodity that I purchase, wheat, or I spend $800 million a year, is all managed through 26 interconnected spreadsheets. Now, someone's got to ask the question, why is that? And the reason is that many big transactional systems of record, where they do a great job with what they do, when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to flexibility, those systems are very difficult to manage. And so people then, migrate and start to utilize Microsoft Excel as the method of being able to exchange the information. Now, when we looked at this particular problem with this client, we said, how important is the speed of the exchange of the information? And they said it's critical because we make decisions today whether we should buy that next, whether we should put in that next purchase order, or we might want to wait a day or two and see what the spot price does with regard to improvement. And so the timing of the information exchange is critical. We can't wait for emailed spreadsheets and pound ref errors and 26 interconnected spreadsheets. We need all of this data to be resident in a central database, which is what Boardwalk provides, a central database running on a digital ledger to be able to solve this problem. We believe, and this is still to be tested out, that we're going to be able to save this company between 1% and 2% on their total cost of the acquisition of wheat. So 2% of $800 million is $16 million. It's a significant thing. And we believe that this type of an application will never be migrated over to an enterprise solution, and that it's always going to stay in a collaborative, flexible user interface like Excel. But once you put a database behind it, it really changes the game for all parties and really helps to improve and helps this company move their major commodity purchasing environment to being 100% digital. So that's a very good example of where companies are seeing value with Boardwalk.
Love it. Now, you said stories, and that sounded like one story. Did I miss some?
No, heck no. I could go on for, the next 2 hours if you want to hear story after story.
Tell me one more story, and then let's close.
Yeah. So a large beverage manufacturer that is all pretty well known to us spends about $8 billion a year on their trade promotion. And if you think about trade promotion, it is a very complex thing where you're literally negotiating tens of thousands of contracts per year with multiple people, both internally to your large customers and also the people that work at this particular beverage manufacturer, beverage company. And so the ability to collaborate and exchange information is very, very important. And again, the speed by which this information is exchanged is critical. You need to be able to get approval from your manufacturing facility to say, I can meet this particular demand. If you have your marketing people that are going out and creating a contract to say, we're going to do 3 for 2 for this particular product during this week versus 12% off, and we believe that the lift in both revenue and margin is going to be X, and therefore, if we, can we meet the demand? And you cannot sit around and wait for a week for someone to respond to an email to say, can you meet the demand? And so by automating this system, we greatly reduced the time in which decisions were made, which actually created a much better manufacturing schedule, was able to meet the demand, reduce stockouts, increase revenue, and improve margins, all because people were able to collaborate in a very easy and well-known manner, which is utilizing Excel as the user interface back to a digital ledger.
Well, thanks for joining us today, Andy. I love what you're doing, and I hope others pay attention because it's a very reasonably priced solution to share data effectively. Thanks for joining the show today.
Thanks, Laura. Appreciate your time.
All the best. Bye now.